Good morning and welcome to the webinar featuring Cybersecurity Tips for Business. I'm Nathan Sanderson. I'm the Executive Director of the South Dakota Retailers Association. We're pleased to be hosting this webinar for businesses today as we've heard from businesses from around the state on their concerns related to cybersecurity. We're in very good luck today because we are happy to have Dr. Ashley Podhradsky, who's going to give our presentation today. Dr. Podhradsky is an Associate Professor of Digital Forensics, and she's the Associate Dean of the Beacom College of Computer and Cyber Sciences at Dakota State University. She's been an invited speaker at a number of different events, and I'll say I've heard her speak, and you're in for a treat for today. She's spoken at Pennsylvania State University, Bureau of Justice Affairs, at Women in Cybersecurity Conference, InfraGard, and a number of others. She's been awarded several $1 million in competitive grants. She also has a really strong passion for increasing gender diversity in cybersecurity. She's the principal investigator and the camp director for Gen Cyber, and she's worked a lot with getting women involved in cybersecurity. She was the recipient of the MB 2017 Young Woman of Achievement Award. She's won the Merrill Hunter Award for Excellence in Research, and she is a fellow with New America Cybersecurity. Her credentials are unmatched. For today, before we start the presentation, please make sure that all attendees have their phones muted so we don't hear any background noises. At the end of the presentation, we'll have a question and answer period. If you look on your screen, you should be able to see a little dialogue box there. Just type in the message and we will ask the question of Dr. Podhradsky after she's done. You can do that at any point in time during the presentation, and I will read those out loud at the end so everyone can see the questions and hear the answers. With that, I will turn it over to Dr. Podhradsky. Thank you for being with us this morning.
Thank you for having me, and thank you for the invitation to host another event with the South Dakota Retailers Association. What the group individually and collectively does is important for our state, so I appreciate the things that you do, and hopefully today I'm going to share some information to help protect your business. As I mentioned, as Nathan mentioned, I am at Dakota State University. And I'm also a board member for First Bank and Trust, so I've been enjoying that role as well. I'm a computer forensics hacking investigator and an Access certified examiner. For about the last 12 years, I have done digital forensic investigations for businesses, and some for law enforcement throughout the state. So a lot of private investigations. So I'm well versed in the things that are happening in South Dakota to small businesses and the approaches that you can take to hopefully fight off some and also protect your organization. So today I want to cover the need for cybersecurity in business here in South Dakota. I have some tips that I'm going to go over, and then I have two real life incidents that I'm going to discuss that happened to South Dakota-based businesses. One out of Del Rapids and one that's anonymous. And then if you are a victim of a cyber crime at your organization, I have some resources for you on how we can get the ball rolling on an investigation. So one is the IC3. It's in the FBI's Internet Crimes Complaint Center. And then also Consumer Protection, 1-800-300-1986, the number that you should all call here in South Dakota. Our Digital Forensics Lab at Dakota State is sponsored directly from the Attorney General's office where the Consumer Protection is housed. So if you have an incident, we can come in and we can help at no cost to you. So we're provided, our resources are provided through the AG's office. So we're here to help you through any situation that you could encounter in the cybersecurity area. So you might wonder, well, why me? I'm a small South Dakota business. I only have a website. I don't do business online, or perhaps you do some business online, but most of your customers are here in South Dakota. But you know, why me? Why do I have to worry about this? This only happens to the Citibanks and Targets and Home Depots of the world in big cities. Well, that's what the hackers and attackers are relying on you to think. They want you to believe that you're not vulnerable. They want you to believe that you are not a target. And they want you to believe our true intrinsic South Dakota values of trusting people and helping people out. They want you to have those. And so the thing to keep in mind is that a lot of cyber attacks occur to South Dakota businesses, small businesses. And according to the Better Business Bureau, of small businesses that have a computer, a hacking event, 60% are out of business within the first 90 days. You know, we don't want that. We want to make sure that you're protected. And the hackers are purely relying on the fact that you do not think that you're going to be a victim. And so let's work together to change that, to understand that you are vulnerable, and not to put fear in you, but instead to show you some ways that you can protect your environment, so that way you're not the low-hanging fruit. I always say that cybersecurity is, you cannot have 100% protection. You have to have an acceptable level of risk, and whatever that level of risk is for your organization. But with that, we just want to make sure we're not the low-hanging fruit. We want to make sure that your organization is harder to compromise than someone else, and that way, hopefully you wouldn't be a target. So I'm going to go through those things today. But the good news here is that computer security is not beyond any of your reaches, and I have 5 tips that we're going to go over. Now, the 5 tips are backing up your data. We all hear about ransomware attacks that are happening, and if you're a victim, do you pay the ransom and hope to get your data back, or do you not? But regardless, if you have backups, that's where you need to be. 2, train all your employees. People, you've probably heard this 100 times. Employees are your weakest link. I like to flip that. I like to say that employees are our biggest opportunity for better security in our organization. Because if we look at the people we hire and we say, hey, you're my biggest vulnerability, they're going to feel hesitant and timid. Whereas if you look at them and say, hey, you're the biggest opportunity, you're the best opportunity that I have to keep my business secure and running, that's the belief that I have. 3, stronger passwords. We're going to go over that and what that means and how you can implement that. And that includes 2-factor authentication. And then 4, update your computers. Microsoft comes out on Patch Tuesday, the second Tuesday of every month, that says these are our vulnerabilities and you need to update your system. Now, it used to be that you would have to go through and do that. Now it's automatic. It's an automatic process, but it's not just your operating system that needs to be updated. When you look on your phone and perhaps you go to the App Store on Android or Apple, you're going to see updates for all of those apps. That's important. We need to update the applications within our environment and not just the operating system itself. And then the 5th is to secure your Wi-Fi. There's a lot of businesses around here that, you draw people in with free Wi-Fi. You're a coffee shop in the Black Hills. Well, we want to get the people that want to come in and use Wi-Fi for a couple of hours to catch up on emails. We want to get them in the door. Well, that's great. And you can have that Wi-Fi for your customers, but don't use that same band for your business. So we're going to talk about how to secure your Wi-Fi and different approaches you can do with that. As Nathan mentioned, you can ask questions, and I have the question dialog box open. And so if I see anything that you write along the way that is relevant to the current discussion, I'll address that question. So please type up your questions whenever you need them. So the first thing is backing up your data. Now, you just have to have a process. So if you're a large or small business, backing up your data daily is appropriate, and then having a weekly backup and then a monthly backup. Some people will go quarterly and then annual. And you might think that that's redundant, and you're absolutely right. It is redundant because we want to make sure that your data is in different forms so that if something happens, you have that data. And the question to ask yourself, you know, I gave you daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, 7 different options. The question to ask yourself, your business, is if I lost 2 days worth of data, would that be a big deal? If the answer is yes, well then absolutely, go to a daily backup. If the answer is no, well then perhaps you back up weekly. So it just depends on your unique needs for your organization. The thing to keep in mind is that we all get busy and we all forget things, and so make it automatic. There's different processes and tools that you can put on your system that will automatically back up your data every day. It'll be an incremental backup. And then make sure you push those off-site. The unfortunate part of some of the ransomware attacks and some of the situations that occur is that they might have backups, but their backups are stored locally, and their backups could be encrypted within the ransomware attack. And so make sure that your backups are on a different medium and that they're off-site. And this could be as simple as buying a $50 156 or 256 gigabyte flash drive and plugging it in your computer. That's what I do. I have a flash drive that is encrypted, meaning you have to have the key to open it and view the files. And every week I copy all my files and replace all the files on the flash drive. So that way I have an incremental backup of the data that I've modified in that week. So that's the process that I take. So you don't have to have this super expensive process, but you know, put it on the flash drive. But the thing to keep in mind is that once you plug the flash drive in, you copy your files, you take the flash drive off, and then you put it into a secure location. The reason is that if you do get ransomware, it could go and encrypt that flash drive. And so that counteracts everything that you've done to protect your business. So make sure that if you go that route of plugging in a flash drive, copying your files over, that you take the flash drive out and then you store that in a different site. Now, mission critical data, your HR work, your employee records, financials, receivables, payables, that for your business is critical. And so make sure that you have that backed up in different states. Could be in a cloud service provider, it could be on a flash drive, external hard drive, but make sure you have that. And then test your plan. Grab that drive, grab your backup, and see if the data is backing up like you expect it to. Because we do not want to have a situation where you think you're backing up, you're going through the process, but there was a write error and now you don't have a backup that you need. So the first tip for businesses of all size and individuals is to back up your data, so that if you do get compromised and someone says, hey, we want 20 Bitcoin, which is now over $10,000 again, I think it's like 11 or 12,000. You know, you don't have a $225,000 question to answer. Do we pay it or do we not? And even if you do pay it, you're not guaranteed to get your files back. So the easiest way to do it is to back up your data, get in that habit. You can install an automated tool, or you could set a calendar reminder for the last Friday, Friday at 3, you back up the data of your organization manually. So you have a lot of flexibility there. Now, the second tip for your business is to train your employees and test them as well. Like I said, I believe that employees are our biggest asset. They have the opportunity to take ownership, to protect your organization, and you need to treat it that way. So we need to make sure that our employees are trained on how to secure your information and protect against cyber attacks. So that includes having strong passwords on their account. That includes making sure that their data is backed up. So that includes everything that we're discussing today. Now, the biggest area of concern for organizations is cyber attacks that originate through email. So they get an email message, they click on it, maybe there's a link, excuse me, or an attachment. You know, it's important to train your employees to treat every email like a phishing email. Have them, you know, train them to ask themselves, who is sending this? Why are they sending this? And what are they trying to get me to do? The who, the why, the what. Is it one of my employees that is sending an email to HR asking to change their direct deposit for payroll and they need it done now, right? The who, the why, the what. Well, that's a red flag. Are they trying to get me to invoke an action, to click, to open, to change? And if so, you know, pick up the phone and call. We have had, with our digital forensics lab here at Dakota State, funded through the Attorney General's office, we have had incidents, several email compromise situations that we have investigated for them. So looking at email changes where someone emailed in a change of a direct deposit or changed something within their record, where the person is then going to get that deposit for that employee's, you know, perhaps a monthly paycheck. So that's something to keep in mind. So train your employees to look for the who, the why, and the what, and treat every email like a phishing email. Now the next is passwords. And it's 2019 and we're still looking at authentication with passwords. And sometimes I get a little tired of dealing with this, but it's still a really important issue for our community. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that cracking a password is not challenging. 2 weeks ago, we had our Gen Cyber Girls and Cybersecurity Camp at Dakota State. The National Security Agency provides us funds every year to host a free 1-week camp for middle school girls. And one of the first things that we teach them to do is to crack the word password. Now, it's not because we're trying to create little hackers, but we want them to see that cracking the word password takes a fraction of a millisecond. If I can teach a 10-year-old how to crack a password, that should be kind of alarming to you. So the next step that we have them do, because it's not challenging, so then they see that cracking the word password takes a fraction of a millisecond. So then we have them make another iteration of a password and see how much longer that takes to crack. So perhaps it's a second. Well, make another iteration, another. We want them to get to the point where our algorithm demonstrates it would take 30 years with current computing processes to crack that password. So when it comes to password, there's been a lot of information put out there. About 10 years ago, they said, make it super complex. So special characters, no words, asterisks, $, pound sign, etc. Numbers, uppercase, lowercase. But the thing to keep in mind is that when all that has gone through the wash, the simplest thing that you can do is make a really long password. So perhaps it is South Dakota is my home and my business is selling shirts. I don't know. I mean, that's a really long password, something easy to remember. But the thing is that the length is what's most important, because the length is going to be the differentiating factor of cracking a password. So that is critical. You know, you could use just about anything, but just make it super long and use some characters, you know, special characters, but make it long, and that's your best bet. And then don't reuse passwords. And that's hard. That's a challenge. If you think about it, from everything that I have on my personal and professional life, I probably have 30 different username password combinations. And so I know that there's absolutely no way I'll remember that. So I use a password management system, LastPass, KeyPass, things like that are going to create automatic strong passwords for you and log you in. Now, that does introduce a single point of failure, but one of the things that it does for your organization is that your employees then technically don't have username and passwords to be able to access things outside of the office. So that's a benefit too. But make sure that people are using unique passwords that are super long, and it's best to use a password management system as well. So you can see right here, this is the cracking the word password in 2019. It takes 0.2 milliseconds to crack. And the girls were having a competition to see who could get the longest. I think one girl had like 300 years it would take to crack that password with current computing resources. So just, something that it's kind of fun to see that, but it's easy to crack poor passwords, and don't let that be the differentiating factor that a hacker chooses your entity over someone else. Now, right along with passwords is two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication is using an out-of-band communication to ensure that you are who you say you are. So perhaps it's the first time that you logged into your online banking from a specific browser. So you put in your username and password and you authenticate, and they say, okay, that's correct, but you've never logged in from here before. I'm going to send you a text message with the code, and I want you to put that in here to make sure that you are who you say you are. So that's what two-factor authentication is. You might call it 2FA, two-fact. You might hear it called multi-factor authentication. It just depends on what you have. For example, one of my investment firms, they send me a dongle that I plug in, and it generates a random key, and I put that in to ensure on everything. So two-factor authentication. One of the scenarios I'm going to take you guys through here today with the data breach that occurred, or social media hostage situation, could have been avoided with two-factor authentication. So two-factor can go on almost anything. So whatever it is that you're using, ask your vendor, ask your rep, Google it. How do I add two-factor authentication to Gmail? It's actually quite simple. And then update your software. So in addition to your operating system, make sure that any applications that you have on your system, perhaps QuickBooks, Quickins, make sure that they are updated. Keep your antivirus updated, and avoid letting your employees use the systems for anything besides business. You don't want them going to their Hotmail, Gmail to click on things. You don't want that. So make sure that your policies stipulate that work computers are for work processes, and that's it. But keep everything updated. And then secure your Wi-Fi. We've all gone into different locations where it's an open Wi-Fi, perhaps it's an airport, a coffee shop, and it's okay to do certain things on there. But I wouldn't, if you're just looking to read the news on the New York Times, right? The Argus Leader. If you are going to be doing confidential transactions like logging into your banking, sending and receiving emails, avoid open Wi-Fi like the plague. I've investigated a lot of situations that have started with someone on the road using open Wi-Fi at a hotel that then gets their credentials compromised. And then encrypt your network. Right now, WPA2 and AES is the gold standard. So that's what you should be using. That's an algorithm that encrypts the data. You'll see that as an option when you set up your Wi-Fi. So I wanted to go through an example that perhaps will hit close to home for quite a few of you. The Mason Jar is a boutique in Del Rapids, South Dakota. They have a storefront there. But they also have a huge online presence, and they had 34,000 followers that produce almost $3 million a year in sales. And over the past 5 years, they had spent about $500,000 on advertising on Instagram and Facebook, which helped them to get to that 34,000 follower mark. So they would get something new in, they would take a picture, push it out to Instagram and Facebook, and then from there, people from all over the country would buy it, they'd make their transaction, and Mason Jar would ship it out. So this was just last year. So the Thursday, November 15th, was 1 week before Black Friday. And on Thursday, November 15th, the owner of the Mason Jar, Kitty Lutman, she gave us permission to use this case study. She knows that. She wants everyone to learn from her situation. She woke up in the morning and received an email on Friday and saw that the night before, they got an email that says, your Instagram account has been hacked. The page at the moment we have, it is temporarily blocked, and that you would not have been able to restore. Please sure to include your Instagram username. Please don't stay too long, since unfortunately, we'll have to delete your account within 3 hours without the possibility of recovery. So I think we can agree that English is not their first language. And throughout the evening, then she got another one. I'm not kidding, and I'm really gonna delete it this time. Throughout the evening hours. So she didn't check the email after, Thursday, after she left Thursday, so she got all these Friday morning. So she was communicating with the hackers, and the first thing she did, she went onto Instagram and she looked for her page, and it was right. The page was gone. Shop the Mason Jar was no longer a Instagram handler, and she could in fact secure it again. So I don't like the Instagram policy that they have. As soon as you, if you change your name of your Instagram page, your old name is now available for anyone else to get. So I don't really like that because they changed the name of her account, and so then someone else could get Shop the Mason Jar handle. But she saw it was available, so she secured it again. She contacted Instagram, and Instagram essentially said, what do you mean you need access to your account? You have access to the account. It's registered through to your email. So they weren't getting the, even though her emails were very articulate, they weren't getting they did not get the message that her old account with 34,000 followers was now gone. And so that's on Friday. They sent her an email to try and get a ransom. It was so small. It was equivalent to $285, and she paid it. And then they never contacted her again, and she never got her Instagram account back. So she spent a lot of time communicating with the hackers. There's about 10 emails going back and forth. And so then on Sunday, so she woke up Friday. She tried to get stuff back and work with Instagram on Saturday and Sunday, Friday, Saturday. And on Sunday, about 3 in the afternoon, she emailed me, or she called me. She got my contact information and wanted to see if our digital forensics lab at DSU could help. And as it so happens, I did a panel with her at an event on cybersecurity. So she remembered that and reached out. So what I did is, what our lab did, we went and got all the emails that were sent back and forth between her and the hacker. And I extracted all the headers. It's all this metadata, this hidden data, and I pulled out where the emails originated from. And everyone was coming from Germany. And so the poor English, the odd time that they were sending it, in the middle of the night, all of that lined up with it. So the emails were coming from Germany, not here in the States, and we had a good location of where they're originating. So to recap, there were lots of emails back and forth, all originating from Germany. The hackers demanded a payment in Bitcoin, which she paid, and she paid it to this wallet. Now, the good thing about working with us is that we can then send this information to our partners, so the Fusion Center in South Dakota, and then also the FBI, so that way they can blacklist this Bitcoin wallet. It was used in a known extortion. So there's good intelligence derived from this. So what we did is, the first thing we had her do is contact the sheriff's office of Minnehaha County, since that's her jurisdiction, and she needs to make a police report. So we're now on Sunday, the Sunday before Black Friday. So now we have 5 days. And so she made her police report, and I knew that we didn't have a lot of time for her. With her business, her small business here in South Dakota, she's employing South Dakota people, she's paying South Dakota sales tax, she supports local, teams and does all sorts of great things for our community. So I knew that we didn't have time to sit and wait because her biggest day of the year was coming up, and she didn't have the way to communicate with her 34,000 followers. And she already had the metrics to demonstrate that from 1 year prior, she was down a couple $1,000s a day in sales. And so this was an important thing to fix in a short period of time. So what we did, we wouldn't usually do, but the director of security at Facebook is a friend of mine. And so I reached out to her, and I had her get us ahead in the queue and get some somewhat VIP access to correct the situation for her, because she's a fantastic South Dakota business owner, and her busiest shopping day of the year was coming up, and we wanted to make sure that she had her Instagram page back. Now, the key to all of this was the police report. Instagram is owned by Facebook, and they wouldn't be able to do anything without that police report. So you always need to contact police. But from that, from contacting us on a Sunday, it was Tuesday at 5 p.m., about 40 hours later, that she had, after we contacted Facebook, that she had her page back with all of her followers. We could simply pick a point in time. It was Thursday. We picked Thursday at 11 a.m. and whatever her page looked at that time, we took. So we restored her page, got all of her followers back, and so that way it was Tuesday evening ahead of Thanksgiving. She had her business back like it needed to be for her to continue functioning. And so that's an example of the things that we can do. If you would hire a private firm, you would pay $10,000, $15,000 for that. We didn't charge her a penny. She ended up donating to some scholarships for women studying cybersecurity, which was completely awesome, supporting our students, and she was very thankful. But we're funded through the AG's office, so that's what we're here to do, is to help all of you if you come into a situation like this. So the first thing to do if you're a victim of a cyber crime is to contact the FBI's Internet Crime Complaint Center, IC3, so ic3.gov. And what it is, it's just a central hub to alert the public. It's a public-private partnership with local, state, federal, and international agencies. So ours are going to get parsed and read through the FBI office in Minneapolis. So if they see something happening in South Dakota, then they're going to alert us, where we can then in turn help citizens. So we get fed work through that repository of data. But what it also does is it gives an accurate depiction of some of the cybercrime that's happening in South Dakota, which in turn, it's like the census. You want to count the people who are living in your region because you get more resources for your state. If the FBI knows that there's a lot of things happening in South Dakota, we would get more resources to help us in that capacity. So IC3, ic3.gov, you can go out there and fill out the form. So business email compromise is a big scam that's occurring throughout our country. In last year, so in July, within a week or two, all of the 18 numbers will be released. So every July you have the previous year. So this is the screenshot from the last report because it was July of 18 for the 2017. So we're in July 19. So I have the 2018 data here soon. But there's $12 billion in losses through business email compromise here in the United States, which is just unfortunate. And I'm going to get into BEC here in a second, but I also want to look at some of the other incidents. So the top 10 cybercrimes reported to the IC3, real estate rental scams. You can get this, you know, you're moving to Rapid City, you're going to get this apartment, but I need you to send me a deposit, right? So 56 million. Corporate data breaches, 60 million. So there's actually, it's pretty comparable. The data breaches are what we hear of. When Target, Home Depot, Nordstrom's, when they have a data breach, that's what we hear about. But look at that, the non-payment, non-delivery of 141 million, that's a lot more. You know, I would like to order your product from Made in South Dakota, send it to my office, and then I will pay on the terms you provide, and then you never get it. Or perhaps you order supplies and you pay for them and they never come. So non-payment, non-delivery. Romance scams, super unfortunate, 211 million is reported to the FBI IC3. Now keep in mind, I'm excited to see what the 18 numbers were, but keep in mind these are what's reported. They're oftentimes not reported. But business email compromise is $676,151,185. Now that by far and away is the biggest scam that is affecting businesses, including small businesses, your business. So what is it? So a hacker someplace is going to identify a target. And from there, they're going to groom them. They're going to send them emails, perhaps make a call. They're going to put some pressure. They're just looking at people that they can manipulate. So from there, they exchange some information. Perhaps they call in and say, and they have people in the States that help them, and they can have a dialect just like ours. So, hi, I saw that you had an open position. I would like to apply for it. I'm gonna send over my resume. And so you already have a trust factor. Oh, I've talked to them. They sound like me. And now I get the email from them. And now I'm gonna open up the email and I'm gonna click on that link. So that's why it's important to have a process. So if you're going to accept email attachments or do online hiring, use something like Indeed or Monster or something to scan all the files that are being uploaded, so that way you know that they're not going to impact your system. And then essentially they're going to try and initiate a wire transfer of some sort. So let's get into this a little bit more. So we have a cyber criminal. I decided to make her a woman just for fun, because we always say bad guy, bad guy. And I thought, well, let's make the woman a hacker. She's going to find her victim and learn about that person. So they're going to try and get to the comptroller, but perhaps they go on the dark web and find some credentials and find one person at the organization, and it finds that, hey, they work in HR. Well, now perhaps they compromise that person's account. Well, now they can use that person to compromise other people. So you can see it just takes that one person, and now they have this network that they can do within their organization. So you might be thinking, this isn't quite making sense. So I want to apply this to a South Dakota company, and I'm going to be very cautious about any identifying information. So this is a company that I did a personal investigation for. So the summer 2017, an HVAC company was hired by Acme Corp of South Dakota to do the HVAC work on an expansion. The HVAC company did the work, and Acme was happy with what work was concluded. So HVAC sent 2 invoices to Acme. The first one in May was for $83,000. The second one in June for $40,500. When payment was not received, the comptroller of the CFO of the HVAC company followed up with Acme Company. They said that they followed the instructions in the email and wired the funds weeks ago. Well, that's that gut-wrenching moment, that oh crap moment. What do you mean you followed the instructions to wire the funds? I didn't send anything. I didn't send anything for you about wire instructions. I've been expecting a check. So lots of things happened. Attorneys were hired, and eventually the attorney for the HVAC company hired me and asked me if I would help figure out what happened. So I took a forensic image of a computer and I got all the emails that were sent and received, and I saw that there were emails sent from the CFO's account to Acme Corp requesting wire instructions. They were sending it to SunTrust Bank. It was in Tennessee, account number, routing number. And we can see the dates, and we can see that it was originating from Nigeria. So someone in Nigeria was posing as the CFO, and all they did, they groomed him. They got into her email. They went into the sent folder. They sorted by has attachments, because that's how they sent out bills. And now they knew all of the businesses and people that owed HVAC company money. And what they did is they sent a new email to all of those companies, and they said, sorry to let you know, we've had an incident with our bank. Darn hackers. Yeah, they actually said that. We can no longer accept paper checks, but we set up a new bank account. Please wire all amounts owed to this account. Now think about it. It's a South Dakota business to a South Dakota business, but we're going to wire the money to Tennessee. You know, that part doesn't make sense. But all of those emails were sent from Nigeria. So now they had other people to follow up with and say, hey, don't wire, don't wire, don't wire. So we knew several other businesses, and we just had to call them. So the thing to keep in mind is that in this situation with a fraudulent email, this is what business email compromise is. They get into your email, they learn who you are, they learn who has the ability to request funds being transferred, and then from there, they make the request and they just hope it works. So they spend time in your email, they learn how you communicate, they learn who you are, and they learn who the different players are within your organization. Now this HVAC company, they didn't have a big online presence, but they did have a website that outlined who's doing what and how to connect with them and what's their email. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, the thing to keep in mind for business email compromise is that a lot of this started when businesses started using Office 365. And there's a good chance you use it at your company. But there's a simple checkbox that you can put in that's going to log all the locations that people access, or they can put up a digital geographic area. So perhaps you say, you can only log into your email if you reside within Madison, South Dakota. If you go to Sioux Falls, you can't log in, you know, so then you have to identify what makes sense for your company. Perhaps it's just the IP. You can only log into your email from your business IP. So you have to figure out what makes sense for you and get to that acceptable level of risk. So I wanted to put the National Cybersecurity Center out of the UK has some good information. So I wanted to reference them. You know, again, backing up your data, keeping everything updated, malware, phishing, using passwords. So it just goes into a little bit more detail, but there's a lot of resources here that are very good. And so I didn't want to rip them out and give them to you individually. I thought I would give you this so that way you could use that within your organization. One thing that we're seeing a lot of, Hi, I need my payroll direct deposit account changed and would like to know the information needed to get this done. Regards. I threw this in kind of last minute, specifically for the reason that we're seeing a lot of this. We are seeing way too much of this. Now, the number one thing that you can do to avoid falling for business email compromise or, changing someone's pay is to pick up the phone and call them. Pick up the phone. Say, hey, Ashley, I got your email that you would like to change your direct deposit for your bank account. Was that legitimate? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, then I'll send you the information. And if no, well, then they know not to process it. So we're seeing a lot of this. There have been way too many people that have fallen for it, which is super unfortunate. But if it's a business email compromise, if it's an attempt to wire transfers, it's an attempt to move money, the who, the why, the what, keep that in mind, and then pick up the phone. Pick up the phone and call. That can avoid a lot of this. And if something happens at your organization, call Consumer Protection, 1-800-300-1986. They are who can put you in contact with us, and they can help you, help us help you. And then now I will open it up for any questions that you have.
Thanks, Ashley. Appreciate that. Lots of really good information in there, and we've got several questions that have come in. And so first question goes to something that you talked about earlier on in your presentation. And the question is this: I keep getting emails that say that a person has hacked my computer system and that they can see what websites I've been on. The emails say that they're going to email everyone in my address book, and tell them that I've been on porn sites, which I haven't, unless I pay them some money. Yeah. I always assume that these are just spam emails and that I should delete them. Is that the correct thing to do, or should there be some other steps that I'm taking when I get those messages?
Nope, delete them. I get them too. I get ones that say, I saw you self-abusing, and I didn't realize what they were intending there. But yeah, delete them. Delete them, don't respond to them. What they'll do is they'll go buy a bulk list of email addresses, and they're going to email 100,000 people at once. And you'll get that one person or a couple people that will fall for it, but add them to your spam filter and just ignore it.
Okay, very good. Second question, and this is related to what you talked about doing automatic backup using a flash drive. And so the question is, how exactly do I encrypt information on a flash drive? Do I need to buy a special one, or can I use one that I already have and need to do something with it? What does that process look like?
Fantastic question, thank you. So there are aftermarket encryption algorithms that you can use, TrueCrypt, for example, or you can simply go to Amazon or Best Buy, shop local, right? Go to a site in your town, and you're gonna find a flash drive that has an encrypted vault. So they'll usually use that word, vault. SanDisk has a great tool. I'm looking at mine right now that's right next to me. So I use a SanDisk that's encrypted. So when you first plug it in, it's pretty simple. It sets it up. What password do you want to use? And then from there, whenever you plug it in, you put in the password, then you can copy your files over.
Okay, very good. And then a follow-up question to that. So if I want to use a flash drive to back up my data, how should I actually go about doing that? What I mean is, should I just seriously manually every day or every week drag the files from the folder that I'm using to store them either on my computer or on my shared drive and actually drag that over into the flash drive? Or is there some automatic system that I should be buying or using? How do I actually do that backup?
Great question again, thank you. I get high level sometimes and I don't get into the granular details, so I really appreciate that. There are different ways that you can do it. You can actually set it up through Windows to do an incremental backup or a full backup. I actually keep all my data on a flash drive, a low profile flash drive that you can barely tell that's plugged in. and then I back up that to another flash drive every week. And so I used to have automated schedulers that would do it, but now I just pick a night before I go to bed. I simply take a Control A, I select all the files, I do a Control V on my destination drive, and then when it asks me, do you want to copy like files, this already has this, and I would say skip those. So that's essentially an incremental backup of everything.
Got it. So just to sort of summarize, you're actually doing that mostly manually. I mean, you've got a couple of different flash drives set up, but you're actually keying in the process to do the copy.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, I have one system. I have one or a couple systems, but it's just one person. So for me to initiate that, it's about 15 seconds of click and yes. But for a business, depending on your size, you could go that route, or you could set up a manual process.
Okay.
Or automatic.
Right. All right. Slightly different track here, and the question is this. Currently, my business's computer system is set up so that any employee who logs in at their workstation has access to all of the information on the system. Can I set it up so that each person only has access to the files that are specific to their job? And furthermore, if things are compartmentalized in that way, and if one employee is hacked, would that theoretically limit a hacker to just the files that individual employee who's compromised has access to, or is the entire system still at risk?
That is a fantastic question with lots of detail. I appreciate that. So yes, if you have a system and you have multiple employees that are logging onto it, you could make them users. So it's permissions that you give them. And then there are users that would have permission to view only the files on their user account. You could set up yourself as an administrator that has access to everything. So if you want to compartmentalize things that way, you can do that. It's actually pretty simple through the Windows system that you can set that up. So the question is, if you are compromised, is a hacker able to see the files from different accounts on that system? If they have administrator access, they would be. So it just depends on how, if the hacker has been able to pivot and increase their permission, if they would be able to see those files.
Okay, and so really what sort of to get down to a business, you need to determine what files an individual employee would need to have access to, or that you want to have access to, because they're going to be different potential points of compromise based on the access that individual employee has.
Absolutely.
Okay, a couple of other questions here quickly. We've got just a few minutes left. So the question is, should I require employees to change passwords periodically? And I'll answer that one for you. The answer is yes. But I think the question for you is, how frequently makes sense? And is there a really good process for that, other than just saying, hey, employee, change your password. It needs to be at least 8 or 10 characters, and you need to do it every quarter?
Yep. So if you have Active Directory environment where you set up user accounts yourself and you give them permissions to your network, it's a checkbox. I used to be a network admin, and every 60 days you had to change your password. So you'd log in and it would say, hey, your password's expired, set a new one. So that is a process that you can take, so it's manual. So 60 or 90 days we see as a recommended change. There's some organizations that have said if you have such a long, strong password, you could use it for longer. So, keep that in mind. But yeah, if you have Active Directory set up within your environment with your network, you can make that automatic to change their password. If you don't, then it's just one of those things that you have to remind people to do.
Okay, very good. 2 questions, and then we're rolling to the end. First one is there a way for me to back up my business's social media posts in case those accounts are hacked and the information is gone?
Yeah, I don't think that there is, because it's on someone else's server. So their Facebook, your posts are on Facebook servers, Instagrams. The biggest thing that you can do in that to help you is make sure that you have 2-factor authentication. So that way no one else from around the world could log in and compromise your account. But yeah, I don't think you can back it up.
Okay, very good. And the last question we've got for you is this. A friend's business email account was hacked, and the hacker gained access to their email list, the friends list. Ever since then, I keep getting spam emails that appear to be coming from other people on that email list, and they're usually referring to an unpaid invoice. I've also heard that other people who were in that address book have also been getting spam emails. Is there anything that I can do about that other than to basically be diligent and be cautious when I'm opening those emails?
Yeah, that's what they're banking on. They're banking on you not knowing that this is fraudulent and just going with it. Yeah, it's unfortunate. Your email has been added to some list somewhere and sold to hundreds of thousands of people that are trying to do this. So, you know, get back to those, the who, the why, the what, and you have to be diligent to ensure that you don't fall victim by false pretense.
Sure, and that's just another example right there of why it's so important when your employees are opening email that they do as you had discussed earlier, and be skeptical of each email that you open and wonder, you know, is this in fact a spear phishing email?
Right, absolutely.
Well, that is what we've got for today on cybersecurity. Thank you to Dr. Podhradsky and Dakota State University in Madison. This webinar is going to be archived on the South Dakota Retailers Association website. That's sdra.org. All of our webinars, are archived on the website, and we're going to be having another one next week on employing people with disabilities. Finally, the South Dakota Retailers Association has partnered with Infotech Solutions based there in Madison. A number of former DSU grads work there on providing cybersecurity and other IT support for businesses. And so take a look on our website for that service provider if you've got additional questions on ways to actually go about protecting your business from some of the things that Dr. Podhradsky has talked about today. So thank you again, ma'am, for your time this morning. Dr. Podhradsky, is fantastic information as always. Thanks to everyone who's participated.